Hello, hello. Who's going to be first in the chat? Anybody out there? Can you hear me? Hello, hello. Looks like there's a few of yous. Test, test, test. Hey, there we go. Test. All right, I was just checking it here on my iPhone. What's up, Jonathan Donaldson? What's up, Heathen Rohirrim? What's up, Kristen? Wordy, how y'all doing? It's nice to see everybody. Greta will be here in just a minute. We just finished dinner, supper. What would you call the meal at 6:30? Dinner or supper? Not sure. Scratchman, hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? How we doing out there? I'm in the habit of listening to your podcast on the bus home. Awesome. Love it. Josh, what's up? Superfan Josh Sosa. Good evening. Good evening. Ty, indeed, another fine night with the fellow Tolkienites. Fourth breakfast. We'll use I like fourth breakfast. We'll just make them all breakfast. I mean, breakfast food is the best food, and it's not even a controversial thing, right? So, yeah. Hey, well, while we're waiting on Greta, on what do you guys? What's the latest in the world of the Rings of Power? Because I got to be honest, after all the controversy, I shared some thoughts. I put some videos out there, but it just kind of got started to get to me pretty quick. It's a lot with all the just chattering back and forth, and at some point I'm just like, man, I just want to read more Tolkien right now, some more actual Tolkien. In fact, I want to read a lot of actual Tolkien, and so I haven't been paying much attention, but I don't feel like there's been much actual news. So yeah, I don't know. You guys heard anything? Is there any actual news going on with regard to the Rings of Power? Hey, there she is. Welcome.
Fashionably late as always.
Yes. All right. We're backwards in this one from where we normally. What did you? Oh, you forgot your headphones, right?
Yeah, I forgot my headphones.
Yeah. Well, you really don't need them. I don't think you need them. No, it's not like anybody. You can hear me, and nobody's talking back to us, audio wise, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you should be good.
Cooler with them on.
You feel cooler with them on?
Is that weird?
No, not at all. Not at all. It's kind of weird, but that's all right.
You mind if I go get them?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh.
All right. Yeah, been distracted by the MLB coming back. Indeed. I'm thankful it is. A whole lot of talk, but no actual substance. That's what it feels like to me, Ty. That's what it feels like to me too. There's a whole lot of jibber jabber and very little in the way of anything really going on. I'm gonna see if we can pop this out a little bit so it's easier to read. There we go. All right. So it almost makes me think, are they rethinking something? I don't know. But you think it's been well over a month now since we saw the trailer, and you'd think that there was more actual news to share, but I don't know. Yeah, Rings of Power not looking good. Judging by their comments and posts, they're showing little to no respect for Tolkien's work. Um, Heathen Rohirrim, I'm jealous. I wish I could be like playing Lord of the Rings online right now. I've thought about maybe trying to live stream a little bit of on this channel of playing Lord of the Rings online. There was one point last summer I started playing it some like during it's kind of the height of the pandemic when I had a little more downtime. Man, I loved it. It was great. It was so much fun. And I just haven't had as much time as of late, but yeah. So anyway, did you hear there's a new version of the Silmarillion coming out with illustrations by Tolkien? Oh, interesting. I'd love to see that. If you got a link for that, Kristen, that would be really cool. Always up for seeing more of Tolkien's own illustrations. So that's very exciting. Yeah, there we go. See, I told her to get the glasses, right? If one of us has glasses, it makes us collectively look all that much smarter. So like we really know what we're talking about.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's already a lot of chatter going on. I like it.
Yeah. So you want to take over the chat? You want to take over the dialogue over there?
Yeah.
All right, the chat. I tried to make it a little bigger so it's easier to see.
Well, I have my glasses now, so
this is true.
It's better. Hello, Carswell, Red Hawk. Hello, at work right now, but still here. Shh, don't tell my boss. It's our secret, Red Hawk. So glad you're able to join us.
Oh, Red Hawk. So yeah, here you are. So you and I were just messaging back and forth on Patreon. Did you see my note about Círdan? So Red Hawk asked a great question. He asked, why does Círdan have a beard, right, at the end of Lord of the Rings? Because he shouldn't have a beard. Elves don't have beards, right? And it was a stumper for me. I was a little bit like, that's a good point. Maybe a little error or something. Tolkien hadn't thought too much about beards before then, but that didn't seem right because he'd spent a lot of time thinking about elves when he wrote Lord of the Rings. So it turns out the answer is addressed here in the nature of Middle Earth, or the Hitrar Elden Fo Itzenarchnik, right? As it looks to you all right now, because everything's showing backwards.
That sounded like something from Twin Peaks.
Yeah. So it's actually in the Beards chapter there. It tells us that Círdan, hold on, let me get there we go. All right. Some years earlier, however, Tolkien had written that elves did not have beards until they entered their third cycle of life. Nerdanel's father was exceptional, being only early in his second. And in any event, in the Lord of the Rings, it is said of Círdan the shipwright that very tall he was, but his beard was long. So, and apparently that actually comes originally from Vinyar Tengvar, which is the language, Elvish language journal, and very sort of scholarly journal that's edited by Carl Hofstadter. So there's a lot of really interesting things in there apparently. But yes, so apparently elves do have beards the longer they live, right? If they enter their third cycle of life. So that's an interesting little note there.
Yeah,
so
it's a sign of longevity, of a life well lived. Also, thank you to Jonathan and Heathen Rohirrim for the shout outs. I guess my glasses are they like them. So thank you. I cool book nerd is what I'm all about, for sure.
Yeah, I think you all understand that part of it is that the reason that I was giving Greta a hard time last time on the last episode of the podcast was about her glasses, was because I'm secretly jealous that she has glasses and looks smarter than me. So
I've actually always wanted glasses.
Yeah.
I remember being jealous of my friends in elementary school and middle school that had glasses. And I remember begging my parents, please, can I get glasses? And they were like, no, you have perfect vision. You don't need glasses. But now that, I'm older, I actually do need them. But I'm too cheap to pay for a prescription. So
both of my parents had, I believe they had reading glasses when they were about my age. So I figure it's only a matter of time for me.
It probably is, but yeah, they're fun and they have lots of cool styles now. So it's not a bad thing to have to wear glasses. Ty Miller. It is said that Legolas now today has a beard longer than Gimli's.
Nice.
Wait, is that canon? Or
I think that's a joke. I think.
Oh.
But see, the thing with Tolkien is you never know, right? Like there could be some obscure footnote somewhere that says
I know.
that, right?
That's why I'm like, oh, maybe. And then Kristen says Elrond has a beard in the animated Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's animated Lord of the Rings. I was going to say unfortunately, the animated Hobbit, they have the elves of Mirkwood are like green goblin, weird, like looking like green frog looking things. So yeah. The canon of Ty. Yes,
that was in the Hobbit, though, right?
That was the animated Hobbit. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I see. That was from the canon of Ty.
Yes.
Nice. Cool. And also, yes, Heathen were here. I promise not to make any positive comments about Amazon, but please understand that I do appreciate the fact that I was able to get cheap reading glasses from them that didn't look completely terrible.
They have exceptionally fast shipping.
They do have exceptionally
fast shipping. And it's cool that you can buy clothes and then return them so easily. So, try them on and then return them so easily.
That is true.
But so far, not too sure what to think about what we're seeing from the Rings of Power. So we were talking about that. I was asking them their thoughts on before you came in, Greta. So it just really feels like there hasn't really been much actual news. There's been a lot of chitter chatter, but there hasn't been a lot of actual news on Rings of Power since the Super Bowl teaser.
Okay, aired. They haven't posted anything else of note, really?
No.
Okay.
No. So, I did find, I saw this article right before the live stream. It's on Screen Rant and it says the Rings of Power's Finrod reveal sets up a darker Lord of the Rings prequel. And so I saw the headline and I was like, wait, what's Finrod doing in the Second Age? Right? What's Finrod doing in the second? I'm like, what kind of craziness have they thought up now? It might just be a flashback. Hopefully it's just a flashback if this is indeed Finrod. But apparently one of the figures in the trailer that was sort of mysterious, the one who was looked like they were in battle. In fact, I thought it was just another version of Elrond at one point, but some people are claiming that it's actually Finrod, and I don't know that that's been confirmed, but it must be a flashback if that's the case, unless the idea is that Finrod died, was reincarnated in Valinor, right? Which he was, and then decided to come over here and help fight the battle at the end of the Second Age, right? Again. So, but I don't think they would have let him do that, right? The Valar wouldn't have let him do that. Yeah, Scott says probably a battle flashback. That's right.
I still need to get my ages straight, people. Like I cannot keep it straight. I'm like, okay, we just talked about Finrod, right? Like the other day on the podcast.
Yeah, that's first age.
Okay, so Silmarillion is first age.
Well, and even we're not even on the current run of the podcast, we're not even into the first age yet. We're like still in the years of the trees, right? So which is
that's pre-first age.
Pre-first age.
Prehistoric. Okay. And then first age is what?
First age is after the Noldor, after the destruction of the two trees and the Noldor go to Beleriand, right? So, yeah.
Oh, I thought we had gone over that. We haven't gotten there yet?
No. Oh. We've gone from Beleriand to the Blessed Realm.
Oh,
but we haven't gone from the Blessed Realm back to Beleriand yet.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, that's the first age. And the second age is?
The second age is Numenor. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That made like Adolindile. Not Adolindile. Valaquint. Oh, I'm just gonna shut up, guys.
Go through them. We'll get it eventually.
It's the one at the end. The one after the Quintus Silmarillion.
Akalabath.
That's it. I think it started with an A. Okay. Yeah. Oh, I even did a reread of that one.
Akalabethale.
That's right. Okay, so that's second age.
That's if you combine Adolindile and Akalabath. It's Akalabethale.
I like that. Yeah,
that's not even really a thing. I just thought I'd throw that in. That's part of the canon of Ty. That's what we're going to refer to as all things that we just make up. The canon of Ty. It's like if Jeff Bezos can have his own canon, then Ty Miller can have his own canon. So
I think that's fair.
That'll just be what we do here on the Tolkien Road. It's like, that's canon of time, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah. I like that. I like that we have a name for that because I think I'm going to be adding to that quite a bit. Tom McArdle, hello. He says, will Finrod's ring make an appearance in the series? Maybe that leads to a flashback.
That could be. I mean, there's several ways in which they could possibly work that in there. I mean, I was of the mind that I was really hoping that that this series was going to be very flashback heavy. Because in it, so I've done some videos. I have done some videos with thoughts, like sharing my own thoughts on some of the various Rings of Power controversies. I don't know if you guys have checked those out on the YouTube channel, but one of my biggest problem, like I said on the last live stream, is just the sense that I get that they're going to flatten the history of Middle Earth, flatten the history of the Second Age, and try to compress things. And I think those, there's essentially the words that were used by one of the showrunners, right? Now, what exactly that means, we'll just have to see. Maybe they mean we're going to use flashbacks a lot, right? But I don't think that's what they meant, because you would have thought, because they seem to know it was going to be a controversial point. So I was hoping they would do a lot more flashbacking. Maybe even each season of the 5 seasons that they are apparently going to do would be like, dealing with different times in the Second Age, right? Different periods of time. Use the elf characters to tie it all together, right? Galadriel, Elrond, Gil-galad, Círdan, right? Use all these characters to really tie the whole thing together, because you will have men dying off the whole time, but it doesn't sound like that's what they're going to do. So,
Wordy says maybe he faked his death. Passed the time in a goofy nose / eyebrow / glasses disguise.
I'm canon of Ty again. There we go. I don't know. I don't know that Ty would actually approve that one, though. I'm not sure that would qualify. So
faking death that's a cool idea, though. I like it. Red Hawk says, "Ooh, Aragorn's old ring from Finrod."
Yes,
that's what we were talking about. Yeah,
the ring of I believe of Barahir originally. So that one that was, I believe, was it given? It was given to Barahir by Fenrir. I think I've got that correct. Or maybe it's the other way around. But anyway, I believe that's correct. All right. Hey, let's hit some correspondence. Hey, you guys got questions? You guys got things you want to talk about, topics you want to hit? Let's do it. Just let us know right there in the chat. Make sure you like this, please. Make sure you like this. Let the world know you were here. And and if you want to, if the spirit moves you and you're in the mood for a donation, I think the super chats are open. So there you go. All right.
Tom, real quick, Tom is confirming that you were correct. Yes, the ring was given to Barahir.
It's it's tough. Like I mean, we've gone through this. We've gone through the Silmarillion before. I've read it several times, but there's still details. It's amazing. This time through is by far the richest reading I feel like I've had of the Silmarillion so far. It's just
what, number 3 or 4 for you?
It's at least number 5.
Oh,
I mean, but
wow. Okay. And I still can't keep the ages straight. So I mean,
yeah,
you're doing better than I am. That's for sure.
Well, I mean, you're doing all right. You're doing all right. I mean, I spend all my time, thinking about Tolkien stuff. So
that's true. That's true. John Rickards quotes, "And in token of his vow, he gave to Barahir his ring."
Nice.
Cool. Finrod, I'm assuming, is the. It's him. Okay.
Yes, Finrod, because Barahir saved his life, right?
Oh, it's all coming back to me now.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Good deal.
All right. Well, let's so like I said, let us know what's on your guys' minds. We're gonna hit some correspondence. So let's do that. I'm gonna hit one from Chris K all the way back in July or January, not July. That would be a long time. So Chris shared some thoughts via Patreon. He says, "I did have a few other things I wanted to bring to you as well that you may or may not already know about. You seem to have a great enthusiasm about graphic novel adaptations. It's true that there isn't any, but there is a 3-part miniseries by Eclipse Comics in the late 80s, which have been collected into one volume over the years. I haven't sat down and read it, but I did flip through it, and it seemed pretty faithful to the book. That's interesting. Might have to look that up. So there's a Eclipse Comics, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if it's from the late 80s, it's going to be good.
Yeah. He goes on to say, in one of your guys' older episodes, there's discussion of how stories from the film would work as operas. While it's true there are no operas based on Tolkien's work, there's a licensed musical based on Lord of the Rings from the mid-2000s. The budget was record-breaking, but it flopped pretty hard. I haven't delved too deep into it, but one of the reasons I hear cited is that they had to cut so much to fit it in one musical that it's hard to follow for non-book fans. There is a soundtrack and a number of audio bootlegs and some incomplete video bootlegs along with promo clips. Someone on YouTube recently made a reconstruction using all available footage, which isn't perfect for two reasons. One, more obviously, it's not ideal to cobble pieces together. Two, they combine footage of the Toronto and West End productions, which aside from the more obvious issues of different casts, it was reworked to some extent before it moved to London. But it's the best representation we have. Yeah, and I'm of the mindset I'm not really a musical person. So music, yes. Musicals, I mean, some of them are good. It's just not something I'm normally into. And I don't feel like Lord of the Rings would work particularly well, but your mileage may vary on that kind of thing. So
yeah,
agreed. And then apparently we have not covered the Adventures of Tom Bombadil, but I would like to. It's on my list of things to cover, of course, as is everything that Tolkien wrote, basically. But I've only just learned the other day a more recent edition came out that features a bit more content. So always cool to hear from Chris. Thank you, Chris.
Let's say a quick good night to GK Alive. I'm not sure where they are.
GK Alive. Oh, GK Alive. But I think I have a note. Let's see from for you. Let's read that.
I think it's awesome that they're hanging with us at 12:30 a.m. local, though. That is really cool.
Hopefully they have not dropped off yet, because I had one of GK Alive's notes here.
Well, they said they're going to listen tomorrow when they get up. So either or, I think we're good.
Did I read it last time? I might have read it last time.
It's from February 6th. I'm trying to figure out. They started with my name, so let's read it.
Well, it's more important that way.
Yes.
Greta really gave an important point, which I don't think either of you knew the gravity of what she said. But she said, when you're immortal, time doesn't have the same urgency as being when you're immortal, time doesn't have the same urgency as being mortal, and how you can always deal with something later on. That's exactly the whole book of the Silmarillion and the battle with elves and men with Morgoth. The elves always wanted to wait. I forget the chapter, as I don't have the book with me, but it mentioned Fingon. Seeing how the elves were at peace and had the cities built, wanted to form an alliance to make war with Morgoth. But the other elven lords, knowing a battle would be long and many lives lost, decided against it, and there was a peace for 450 years before the Battle of Sudden Flame. But that's an example of being immortal. Everything was put off for a later time. They don't need to rush or think of time. Sure, Gondolin took 355 years to build. If that was man, imagine something being only started in 1667 and completed in 2022. It would never happen after 50 years. Everyone will have given up. Time is too precious for men who are here for a limited time. Yeah, and I think I think that just gets right to the heart of the whole problem with flattening. Like, it's such to me, and again, we'll have to watch the show and see how it really all pans out. But to me, the idea that you want to compress this timeline, because then we'd have to kill off some men characters, if we really wanted to tell the whole story. And it's like, yeah, you would. And that's the point, right? That's kind of the point of, of like the fact that there's elves and men. You have some men-like creatures that are in fact immortal. And so there's supposed to be this juxtaposition of, that's what life would be like if you were immortal, right? Like, you think it would be all perfect and everything, but actually you'd just be kind of sad for a really long time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when, more sad things happen, as more of the things that you had thousands of years ago fade away, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So great note, GK Live.
Yeah.
I now release you. You can go to bed.
Let's see. Backing up a bit. Heathen Rohirrim, he says, my main concern, since you were just talking about the TV show, he says, my main concern with TV shows is a very limited source material, just the appendices from The Lord of the Rings, I believe. How do they plan on adhering to Tolkien's actual work? So do they don't have rights to the Silmarillion?
No, they don't. Okay. And it sounds like the only thing they have rights to is the appendices. Well, rights to the entirety of the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And then they have so they have the appendices. I mean, quite honestly, going back to it, when they originally announced this thing, it was like, what are they going to do? They're going to tell a story that like basically takes place. I remember it was like they were going to tell this like basically the story of Aragorn between The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of like, all right, that could be interesting.
Yeah.
But it was like, it sounds kind of like, I wish they'd do the Silmarillion, everybody was like that. And then they announced they were going to do the Second Age, and it was like, oh, that's cool, right? Wow, awesome,
Yeah.
Now I find myself feeling kind of like, I kind of wish they were just sticking to, the Third Age and not seeking to, it's like building to something, like showing they could do a good job with the material and then building to it, right? Constructing their own stories from, Tolkien's work.
So all they have the rights to are the appendices in Lord of the Rings. Is that, and how much of the Second Age is actually covered in there?
Well, remember it's Appendix B, and it's got a couple of it's basically got a timetable, so it's like 3
It's the
pages.
timeline.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's the
is that what
timeline.
it is? Okay.
I mean, there's a lot in the timeline, but
Yeah.
it's but it's just cursory, right? So
yeah. Yeah. Kristen also says the time compression still worries me.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. And then something else from the canon of Lord of the Rings on Prime, according to Time Miller, Fingolfin and Isildur go out drinking one night.
No, he said that's the canon of Latron Prime.
That's what I said. The canon of Latron Prime,
but
according to Ty.
But I'm saying, is that actually the canon of Ty, right? So.
But what?
Is it the canon of Ty, or is it the canon?
Oh, it's the canon of Lord of the Rings, but according to Ty. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I'm taking too many liberties, I'm afraid. Okay. Wergy had a few comments. I wanted to say, he says he's about to start driving, so he won't be able to type for a while. But he did say this: the Carswells have commented that Elrond is the intentional link between The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. I believe Treebeard is the link between Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. If I hadn't read the latter, I would have no understanding of the combo between Pippin and Merry and Treebeard when he is talking about the lands between the Blue Mountains and the Blessed Realm. So, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Which one? There was a lot in there. Read that. Which one was that
we were talking about Elrond being the link between Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. And he's saying that Treebeard is the link between Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion. And he said if he hadn't read the Silmarillion, he would have no understanding of the conversation between Pippin/Merry and Treebeard. Treebeard.
You want to say Treebeard?
I know. Where's our bird nerd?
Where's Jonathan Rice when you need him?
He's not here. Yeah. So he's basically saying that's the Silmarillion he wouldn't have understood what they were talking about in Treebeard and Pippin and Merry were talking about in Lord of the Rings if he hadn't read the Silmarillion. That's what he's saying. So, yes, I completely agree. Reading the Silmarillion enriches your understanding of Lord of the Rings. Right?
Yes.
Sorry, you lost.
But you lost me at Treebeard.
Treebeard.
I'm like, that's
I even have my glasses on.
That's like Treebeard if he was in Leonard Skinner, I think. So
that yes, that sounds good. Yeah, no, good observation, Wordy. I appreciate that. Some comments from John Rickards. He's always awesome. See, I almost said Richards. What is my problem? Okay. John says here's a quote. I think this kind of goes back to the note from GK Alive. We were talking about how there's no rush really when you're immortal. John quoted, most of the Noldor were content with things as they were, trusting them to last, and slow to begin an assault in which many must surely perish, were it in victory or in defeat. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that just kind of proves.
And so that was
insight.
That was in reference to
the elves, like not feeling rushed if you're immortal, like not feeling that urgency of getting things done.
Yeah.
If you have unlimited time. And
that's where, they often delayed making a journey back to the Blessed Realm.
Right. Yep, exactly. Yeah. And then John also makes the point that Morgoth went in the other direction. He got impatient and acted too soon.
I mean, the truth is, like, as a human being, right, the older you get, the more at least there's this tendency to want to feel rushed, right? It's like, the days aren't getting any longer, right? The number of years, right? And look, this is what is in Tolkien, right? This is the kinds of things, the meditation upon, it's one long meditation upon mortality, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
from the very beginning to the very end. Now there's a lot of other things in there too, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's just it's compression bad.
Compression bad. Yes.
All right.
Real quick, just while we're on that note from GK Alive, they let us know that they are from Dublin, Ireland.
Nice.
Very nice. A happy late St. Patrick's Day to you. I know it was a week ago yesterday or tomorrow. And they said, and I made a correction under my comment. Gondolin took 53 years to build. They said I got 350 years as a few paragraphs after it mentions Turgon never let Oh, okay. She just misread. I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're doing awesome. You're doing a good job. You're like trying to follow threads of conversation between, like, you're jumping from
and
here
I'm
to here.
assigning genders randomly to people. I'm sorry. Yes. So GK Alive, thank you. So Gondolin took 53 years to build, not 350. That was just 350 was noted in that same paragraph, but related to something else. So
John Rickers knows what I'm talking about. As humans get older, they start thinking more about death. Memento mori. Right.
Memento mori.
I need to get my little human skull and just set it right there. Like, put it, hello, we're going to talk about Tolkien now. Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Let me hit some more correspondence from the old mailbag here. Let's see. We got Wordy on here, so let's hit something from Wordy a little while back.
Oh, here's an interesting. I'll be a hobbit. Funny. Wordy, actually, speaking of Wordy, says, if you had no expiration date, what would be worth dying for? Most things that are important enough to go to war over are made important by our mortality, maybe.
If you had no expiration date, what would be worth dying for? Yeah.
Yeah, most things that are important enough to go to war over are made important. So their importance is maybe enhanced by the fact that we are mortal.
Yeah, I feel like it's interesting because I feel like there's it is a very interesting question. In my understanding of ancient history is that one of the reasons the Romans were able to be so successful and kind of establish this empire that lasted for a really long time was they made it agreeable for people to just be like, okay, you're going to win, and maybe we should just go along with that. It's like, instead of being like, we're going to win and kill all of you, right? Like, and we're going to conquer you and do all these awful things to you. It's like, we're going to win and we're going to subdue you, and as long as you don't misbehave, you'll be able to live a satisfactory life. So that's a very, like, simpleton understanding of it, but it gets to what Wordy was asking there, right? What's actually worth putting your life on the line, even in mortal terms, right? To go to war for, right? So
it's good food for thought.
Deep question. Yeah, deep question for sure.
It really is. Yeah. Tom says, grace and faith are giving me more patience. Though my years are shorter, I know the best is yet to come. I don't have to accomplish everything in this mortal life. Amen. Yep. When we have that eternal perspective, it really kind of changes our...
Pray for me, Tom. Pray for me. I that's wisdom right there. And I wish, I wish I could kind of just remind myself of that every day, every moment, right? When even just daytime, like during the day, it's like, I tell Greta a lot, like into the evenings, not right now, by the way, but into the evenings, I'm often like, I've learned that I tend to be a little bit less in a good mood, right? And it's like, it's because you look back on the day and you're like, well, I didn't get everything accomplished I wanted to, and that's the same as the day before and the day before and the day before, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I've learned over time that, like, okay, that's a good sign that I'm pretty tired and I just need to go to bed, right? And sleep usually fixes all that. But I think that's still wisdom from Tom, right? So
Oh,
some deep wisdom from
absolutely.
Tom
Because
there.
it really does change your perspective, right? I mean,
Hmm.
of course, we want to leave a legacy and we want to, there's things that we want to accomplish here on earth. Maybe not necessarily even for our own sake, but for the sake of those that we love. So that does have a way of weighing on us, a means of weighing on us. Ty, I wanted to.
Well, let's
Um,
say hello to. I liked this person's comment right
oh,
here. Ervana Undomiel. I love that I walked into a very intellectual live stream.
oh.
Also, hi. Yes.
Yeah, you did. You popped in at a very deep
This is the
level.
Council of Elrond of all live streams right here. Yes.
And speaking of which, I wanted to I want to get a little clarification from Ty, and maybe I just spaced. I would like to know what he's I understand. Like generally, we were talking about what is worth dying for, and Ty says I'd push back some on that, as the most precious thing I would fight for is family or the life of an innocent. Which I totally agree, and that was kind of in my brain as well. Like I was thinking about, well, what is worth dying for me? It would be my kids, right?
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's worth dying for. But I guess I'm trying to figure out
Well, he may have just been
what we were talking about specifically.
in terms of my comments, and I had kind of an unfinished thought. I was just more commenting on that was a good question. If you had an expiration date, what would be worth time? That was the original question, right?
Right.
Wordy.
Yeah.
Most things that are important enough to go to war over are made important by our mortality, maybe. So maybe he's pushing back a little bit on what
Oh,
Wordy said on that second
that
part,
it's our
right?
mortality that makes
Right.
things. Well, I don't know, because like just the fact that like you're like you don't know how much time you have,
Mhm.
right? Like you don't know. Um, I mean, you just don't know, and so that's kind of what makes things that much more precious, right?
Mhm.
Is time with those people that you love. Um, so I think yeah, I mean I think maybe it was the thing about war. I'm not quite sure. But knowing that there is a limit,
Yeah.
right? Like that's why I try really hard, even when I get like short with my children, which happens way too often. I do always try to find them and just like, or even in the moment, I will just squeeze them as hard as I can, and I will just say, I love you, even though you make me crazy. Because
Mhm.
I'm like, that would just be the worst if like the last thing that you remember, like, or the last thing they remember is a disagreement or unkind words. So anyway,
We've told you from the beginning of this podcast that we keep it real here on the Tolkien Road. So,
real.
um,
Yes. Um,
yeah, good stuff.
yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I had another thought and then I lost it. Oh, I was going to say we're getting ready to talk about next episode will be on chapter 7, right, of the Silmarillion. And of course I've been rereading it, and I think this question comes up there. Well, it's interesting because for Fëanor, it was like basically, I'll fight my brother over my half brother over, um, over the Silmarils, and and basically not even over the Silmarils, but over like kind of um, going behind my back, almost like making me look bad, right, in front of my father, in front of our father. Um, so for Fëanor, there was one thing. So Fëanor's obviously an interesting and an exceptional case. Um, but I mean, what did the elves fight for? What did they fight for in the first
Hmm.
age? I mean, really, I think they fought to preserve what they had, right? The realms they had
Hmm.
established, and
Hmm. The way of
and
life and
the beauty they had established, right? Um, and but you have the exception of Feanor and his sons, right? They had a little different dynamic because of the oath, right? They had something different going on than the rest of the elves. At least that's the way I think about it overall. But I mean, I agree with Ty. I think for most of us, we probably there are certainly loved ones who most of us would be willing to die for, right?
Mhm. Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and
He says we were right. It was the second part of the
yeah,
question. He
okay,
said, which was awesome and thought provoking for sure. No, it really is thought provoking for sure. You Aruana, is that is that the name?
Is it a you?
It's a
yeah.
you.
Ariana. All right.
Aruana. She says, for the past 5-ish years, I've been learning about patience and learning how to go with the flow. Amen. You and me both. You and me both. It's a, it can be a battle for sure. I wanted to read what Heathen Rohirrim said. So that was great. He said, I find that our mortality gives more value to simple things, which we would otherwise ignore. I think that's absolutely true. He said, it's perfectly fine to be hobbits sometimes and enjoy food and cheer and song above hoarded gold. Yes. Agreed. We need balance for sure. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to hit this note from Worty here, since Worty is on here. This one. Yeah, so from February 7th. Hello, Carswells. Hope all is well. I took a long rabbit trail of my own and decided to check out the D&D side of Tolkien that John is not so keen on, and I'm now fully immersed and actually am building my own Middle-earth-based campaign to Dungeon Master for the first time. Checked back in today for some refreshers on the Silmarillion, and to my great and gleeful surprise, you guys are going through it again. Yes. So, and man, I wish if I had more time, it's like Lord of the Rings Online, right? Like I do hear about people playing we've done a little bit with like the card talk guys, and we've learned a little bit about playing the Lord of the Rings card game. I certainly would love to do more of like just role playing this kind of stuff, but it's just that's what I'd be doing if I was an elf. I'd be like playing role playing games and video games about myself. So yeah.
Yeah, that's totally not
myself as an elf, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
It's totally not my cup of tea. But I'm glad that it's lots of other people's, and I think that's fantastic. John Sloat. Hello, John. He says, I have been watching and I decided to tell you I am a 13-year veteran of Lord of the Rings Online. 13 years. That's impressive.
Greta, you and I, like at some point, I got to get Greta to like just watch me play a little Lord of the Rings Online and just show her how cool it is. And then maybe
I've never been a video game fan though.
I know, but this is not like the video games that like our boys play, right? It's more like the Zelda games that they sometimes play. But it's like it's very realistic to Middle Earth, right? It really takes the lore very seriously, and like you can go everywhere. It's like you can walk around in Middle Earth. It's really cool. I mean, it'd just be cool to like see what you think of it at some point, right? Now, you guys want to see that?
I'm not opposed. I mean, I'm really not. Like I said, it's just not ever been my not just not my thing. But maybe I mean, I do love myself a good Mario Kart now and then. So
let's say goodnight to Tom.
Oh, is Tom saying goodnight? Oh, good night, Tom. Thank you for joining us. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Oh, I get that.
Oh yes.
Well, sleep well. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Good night. Let's say Heathen Rohirrim says, good to see fellow Lord of the Rings Online fanatics. And also Ty points out very truly that you have a beard. So you'd have to be an old elf.
There we go.
Or he said elder elf. I used the word old. Yeah.
I do have a character on there. What is my character's name? Can you do that? Can you find like other people's characters on there?
On
Lord of the Rings
on
Online?
Lord of the Rings? I don't know. That's a good question. It sounds like I have some. What does this mean? John Sloat says I have somewhere around 40 tunes in different realms. Is that what you call your person? Is a tune?
Maybe.
Or is that like short for cartoon?
Yeah. Well, it's so I don't. These folks who are talking about it could tell you a lot better than I can, but my understanding is there's like different servers that where you play, and so you might exist on that server, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. Josh answered my question. Tune equals character.
Tune equals character.
Thank you.
I didn't know that actually.
I didn't know that.
I was like, it's tune? Okay.
All right. Yeah, character. It sounds like there's a new Harry Potter game coming out too.
So
Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Greta's gonna want to play the Harry Potter game.
Probably I'll be honest, guys. I wasn't gonna say anything, but I think I might be a little bit more into the Harry Potter one.
Greta's like, actually, I lied about the whole video game thing. I've been playing it for months.
Just not the Lord of the Rings one. Sorry, guys.
You see what I have to live with. All right.
It is cool though. Like I think it's really cool. Uruana says I have this game called Crusaders Kings 3 and there's a mod that someone made that's based a couple years before the War of the Ring and it's amazing. I highly recommend it. Oh,
Cool.
so like prehistoric Lord of the Rings. Is that what she's talking about?
No,
No,
pre before the Lord of the Rings, not prehistoric.
Okay, the War of the Ring. Yes, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, you can get the Lego video games for Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings.
Yes, this is true.
Okay. Well,
I played the Star Wars versions of those games.
okay. Well, Greta, you'll get to play as a Hogwarts student in the 18th century. 18th century.
Mm-hmm.
Why the 18th century?
I'm not sure why.
Josh,
the 18th
explain
century.
yourself. I don't want to be in the 18th century. But the Lego video games sound cool. All right.
Can I read another note?
Yes.
All right. This one is from Jacob. Jacob S.
Okay.
I don't think Jacob's on here right now, but
I
he
haven't
is
seen him
one of
on
our
here.
patrons. All right. In my read through of the Silmarillion thus far, this I think is my favorite part. So he's referring to chapter 4 of Thingol and Melion. It's so tiny, and yet I think it's one of the most beautiful bits of literature in it so far. I think Tolkien really captured what it looks like to be absolutely captivated by someone in love with someone. Captivated by someone in love with someone.
Mm-hmm.
You hit on it well, John, when you said that it's a lot like when you meet someone that you fall in love with and then begin to plan your life around them and make sacrifices to be with them. I think love does involve sacrifice, and for Thingol, that meant abandoning his people. It can be a sad thing when you think about it, but also look at what it produced. It's also a bit like when you read St. Matthew's Gospel in the New Testament, which begins with a seemingly dry list of Jesus's genealogy. But within that list of names are people who have stories that are quite tragic, and taken in and of themselves, they can be really depressing reading if you don't know where the story ends up with Jesus and the salvation of mankind. So there's a trail of hardship and difficulty that leads to a better place, and I think the story captures that in some sense. So, and
I think that's beautiful.
He goes on to say, this is my favorite chapter. So yeah, I think it's a short, very sweet chapter, but it's but Thingol and Melion, very good. David Bigwood also shared a good one on this.
Yeah, that's a really good. I love that perspective, Jacob. That's I think that's really good. You got to keep the end game in mind, right? Like, instead of just, if you look at things too myopically, you can get distracted and down. But when you kind of zoom out and look at the big picture, you can see where it's all leading.
On the same topic, David Bigwood, on the same episode, said, Greta, I'm not sure it is fair that and so we talked a lot about like whether it was fair that this happened to Thingol, right?
Mm-hmm.
Greta, I'm not sure it is fair that Thingol was enchanted by Melion, but it happens. The first time I saw Cora, I was enchanted. She was so graceful and lively at the International Folk Dance. The next evening, I got to talk with her at contra dancing. Totally smitten by her mind and heart as well as her looks. I couldn't see anyone else but her. When the kids came once again enchanted, then the grandkids, love without any effort. I guess I always had the option to deny that natural feeling and push it aside, but fair or not, love or enchantment happens.
That gave me chills.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that about captures it, right? And I think we in that chapter right there, again, I know that it's not Thingol and Melion on their headstone, on their their burial stone. It's Beren and Luthien, but I think with Thingol and Melion, we get the same kind of sense of what Tolkien, J.R.R. Tolkien felt for Edith, right?
I think that's probably true.
That same kind of enchantment. I feel like he put that. I don't think it's a stretch to say he put that, in there as a very based and personal experience. So
I love how he sums it up. He says, "Love without any effort. That's the best. That's the best kind." It's a really interesting description of enchantment too.
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, for sure.
It's almost like you're taken outside of yourself and you're just, you're just floating.
Oh, I had a great note from Tom, and I didn't get a chance to read it while he was on here, but I'm gonna go. Do we need to catch up on some chats over here? What do you think?
Well, Josh did explain himself, so I appreciate that. He said Hogwarts Legacy is set before the Harry Potter films, and it's actually 19th century. Game releases this holiday season. Okay. I didn't realize that we were talking about like a prequel to Harry Potter, but now I understand. And then people are talking about Star Wars, so we're just not going to talk about that because this is a Tolkien podcast. People, we only talk about Tolkien and Harry Potter.
What? What?
No, that's fine. I guess Star Wars, the online Star Wars games.
Yes, you're only allowed to reference Star Wars and Harry Potter and all those other things if you're making some kind of point about Tolkiendom. So that's is that I think that's the rule.
Well, I guess if we're talking about online video games, of which Lord of the Rings is one, then I guess it's fair game. Yeah, I guess it's fair game.
Yeah.
Where T says, "Wow, first ever positive outlook I have heard on
the Begats."
What is that?
The Begats are the in like the Gospel of Matthew, right? You know, the
so
and so begat so and so begat so and so.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I think that's what he's referring
to. That makes sense. Yeah, I've not heard it referred to that, but I like it. And is that also the is that the gospel that's read at the Easter Vigil, or is it the Christmas? I feel like we read it at one
point. Easter Vigil would probably have to do with the resurrection.
No, I know, but there is something. Okay, maybe it's Midnight Mass. I feel like we read that gospel, the whole begotten thing, like the lineage of Jesus. It's read at some big mass. Because I remember
it's probably Christmas.
One of our priests tried to memorize it at one point. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I think it's Christmas.
That makes more sense. I knew it was some kind of big math. Let's see. Ty says Tolkien's best moments in his writings are when it is a story of romance or that of an act of love for another in some fashion. Amen. That is true. I mean, Baron and Luthien is case in point.
Mm-hmm.
And I think of Thingol and Melion. I think that's obviously another one. So I think that's I think you're absolutely spot on because it's something that he knew well, right? His romance with Edith was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Let's see. Josh says, "Oh, Greta, I could talk about Star Wars." Oh, I'm sure you could, Josh. Yes. Talk about Star Wars and Tolkien together. I'm sure you and John could as well.
Oh, I mean, Josh can run circles around me when it comes to Star Wars lore.
Well,
I mean,
but I think he's talking about linking them.
Oh yeah. Well, my vocabulary is very limited when it comes to what I can link. It's kind of like, people being able to like talk about Lord of the Rings and then, but they don't really know much about this like legendary outside of Lord of the Rings. Well, Josh is like, I'm like that guy who knows the Lord of the Rings equivalent in Star Wars. And then Josh knows all of the first stage, the Silmarillion, all of the,
yeah.
He knows it all, right? So, yes.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. Kristen says, "Speaking of Harry Potter, what's your house, Greta?" Which has absolutely nothing to do with Tolkien, I know, but was merely curious. I'm Ravenclaw. John is Ravenclaw.
I am Ravenclaw.
John's Ravenclaw.
That's right.
I'm Gryffindor. But I real bad want to be Hufflepuff, so I'm going to go back and retake the quiz. But that's a great question. If anybody else wants to throw in their house in the chat, feel free.
I can't let this happen. It's gonna take over.
Okay. All right. I will defer to the preferences of my co-host here.
No, it's all good. It's all good. We're having fun. This is a live stream. It's all good.
Okay. I guess we can talk about Tolkien here for a minute. Scott Watson says, following up on what Jacob said, Thingol is captivated by Melion, someone who transcends anything he could hope to encounter otherwise. She draws him up into her own divinity in this encounter.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. See, that was my argument. That's why it wasn't fair, because she's basically a goddess.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, but to be fair, I think she was captivated by Thingol too, like, y'all, we're going to have okay, let me just say a side note here. I'm doing an interview with someone, and I'm not going to like spoil who it is, but like in a couple of, I think it's a week from tomorrow, I'm going to do an interview with somebody who is going to really lay out like some mind-blowing stuff about like that'll just put even greater context around the whole idea of like like gods in the ancient world and that kind of thing, right? And some really, really interesting stuff. So anyway, teaser for that.
Okay, that'll be really cool.
Yeah.
Yes, I think Josh is right. It sounds like an Advent Sunday reading, the Begats. Yeah,
Yes,
I think that's right.
that's probably right.
Ty says, I got how we help Greta remember the ages of Middle Earth, John, find out parallels with events at Hogwarts. There we go. And Josh and I, we share Gryffindor in common, apparently, and his girlfriend is a Ravenclaw, and he jokes that Hufflepuffs don't exist, which we all know is not true, which is why it's a joke.
Who is there are Hufflepuffs though in the
Oh, there
book, right?
are.
I mean,
Luna,
like actual
Luna
ones.
Lovegood
Luna Lovegood. That's what I thought.
is
Yeah.
one, and I'm pretty sure Cedric was also a Hufflepuff, wasn't he?
I do like Harry Potter, you guys. I'm just, I'm a Tolkien guy.
I know.
So
I know. Ty says he is of the House of Elrond. So
nice.
You and Ty. Yes.
That's right.
Yes. Let's see. Scott Watson. In a way, it's a bit like theosis.
No, Josh says Luna is Ravenclaw.
What?
Is Cedric Diggory a Hufflepuff?
I'm pretty sure Cedric is. I thought Luna was. Are we sure about? Well, I guess I can't really challenge. I can't challenge Josh on this. He's probably right, but I know there's other really good Hufflepuffs in there.
Yeah. All right, we got to get back.
I know we do. I'm gonna report. I'm gonna report back on that.
I need to give a shout out to Timothy Morell, who brought me back and was like, "Wait a minute, we've been talking about Harry Potter for too long." All right. Hi, he said,
yes,
hi, I was wondering if you noticed on Galadriel's armor and the new Rings of Power is Fëanor's star, and if so, what do you think of that? I thought you did not like Fëanor at all. Yeah, I have not dove into. I've heard that theory before, but I have not dove into that at all. My thought, like just I guess initially off the top of my head, is that perhaps it is that so is this star of Fëanor something to do with the being the son of Fenway, right? And if that's the case, then it could be of the House of Fenway, and maybe it's something that they all shared in common, right? So she would have been the daughter of Finarfin, so the granddaughter of Fenway, and so maybe that's possible. But that's the best I can do for you there, Timothy, because I have not dove into that topic, and I'm not super up on that particular bit of iconography or whatever you want to call it. So
just circling back super quick about the begats, I think Scott Watson made a really good point here. He says, in a way, it's a bit like theosis of sharing in God's own life, and this has a cost, as Christ points out in Luke 14. Yeah. Yes, that is true. He says, if anyone comes to me and does not hate father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, even their own life, such a person cannot be my disciple. Yeah.
Well, in that case, I totally hate you.
Boo. Boo. I know. That's a struggler.
I know.
That's definitely not one of my favorite passages in scripture.
Yeah.
But obviously it's there for a reason. Aruana says, I have a question about characters who are similar to Tolkien's life/Bible. I always wondered which model that Tolkien wrote. I wonder which model that Tolkien wrote for Éowyn. I know that Edith was a model for Luthien, but I don't know about Éowyn. Do you know about? Did he have any inspirations or any muses for Éowyn?
I have never heard and I've never thought about it. My one thought is maybe his inspiration was his own daughter, Priscilla.
I was wondering that too. Yeah.
Which I believe I heard the news recently that she passed away. Did anybody hear that news? Yeah. So and God rest her soul. If that's the case, if that's the case, the last of Tolkien's children to pass away. But that would be like just a theory I'd throw out there. I don't even know what she might have looked like when she was younger or anything like that. Let's see if I can find a.
Yeah, Scott said that she did pass.
Yeah.
Josh's last week she did.
Okay. It's interesting, like the pictures I'm finding of her, of course she is a little older in most of these pictures, but she's definitely she does not look like a carbon copy of Edith, is what I'll say, right? So she looks to have like red hair, and I'm trying to see if we can find one where she's a bit younger, but maybe there was a little bit of like, Éowyn was more based on her.
Maybe not necessarily in looks, but personality too.
Well, no, I'm saying like because Eowyn would have had more of like Eowyn certainly was not based in looks on it could be personality. I'm not saying it's just looks matter, but like,
Mhm.
Eowyn would not have been based on Edith, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. Everybody knows though, if you've heard of any if there was anyone that Tolkien based Eowyn off of, I'd be interested to know that as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
Back to the star on Galadriel's armor. Rox M asks, wasn't the star to represent the Silmarils though? And then Urana says, I heard that the star was of Arendelle, but I don't know. Do we know anything about that?
I don't know, and I'll be honest, like this is a really really interesting topic, but it's one when I see the different when I see the different emblems, it's just not something I've studied very closely. For the different characters, the different houses, and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's partly because I don't tend to be as much of a I'm not as much of a visual artist myself. I
Yeah.
appreciate all of those things, but it's just not something I've dove in very heavily into. So
Yeah.
I
Same.
would love to spend more time on it. It's kind of like Lord of the Rings Online. I'd love to spend more time going into it, and perhaps one day I shall. So
Yeah, John Rickards makes the point that Galadriel was among those who had to endure the, how do you say that?
Helcaraxe, yeah,
Helcaraxe due to Feanor burning the ships and leaving Fingolfin and his people behind, which is a good reason to dislike him.
yeah,
for sure. Kristen makes the point that Finway symbol is a winged moon with stars, according to the pictures by Tolkien book.
yeah.
Where he says maybe Feanor and his kin forged the armor and just happened to put their emblem on it like a brand.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, and then John follows up his comment before and says, but not sure we can say Galadriel hated him since she took part in going against that of the Valar and following Feanor to chase Morgoth. But I feel like in the later years, like after Feanor's gone and it's like the whole everybody, it's kind of seen in full like what he caused, with his rebellion. I feel like she wouldn't have been very fond of him at that point, right? And even anyway, yeah, like I it would be surprising to me if she like bore that symbol unless it's something in terms of like allegiance to a particular, to like the memory of this one who was when Finway died, at least. Well, anyway, I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but that it would be just like sort of a sign of tribute to a great elf warrior of the past.
Right, yeah. And a word even says could even be as simple as people know this elvish symbol. Let's use that one at a boardroom meeting.
But the more likely explanation, yeah, the more likely explanation, right? Wording.
Yes. Ty says he fearfully. Well, he says the timing of the moment would need to be known as to which house it may have been represented. Although he also does fearfully wonder if Orty isn't right.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Bezos is like, I want that one. Put that one on her armor.
That one is the prettiest.
That's right.
I like it the best. Roxanne says Galadriel disliked Feanor all the way back to refusing him a strand of her hair 3 times, which led him to make the Silmarils.
Yeah.
She thought something off about Feanor. Yeah. And then Urana says, well, with the kinslaying of Galadriel's mother's people, I would say that probably Galadriel didn't like Feanor that much. Yes, I think there was definitely many reasons for there to be bad blood between Galadriel and Feanor, for sure. Yes, thank you, Ty. I was just thinking about that. I was like, but she gave her hair to Gimli. So that's really cool. That's why, the fact that she denied Feanor her hair 3 times, but then gave it to Gimli on his first ask, that's pretty special.
Yeah. Galadriel did not. I mean, Galadriel was not fond of Feanor. Like, and it's very controversial. I think it was controversial even for Tolkien in terms of like why did she actually leave Valinor? Right? He went back and forth on that, and I think I was discussing this with somebody, or at least when there was controversy about Warrior Galadriel, right? When the Rings of Power teaser came out, um, it was interesting to read Tolkien's like letters where he discusses Galadriel, and actually some the writing on Galadriel that was published in the Unfinished Tales. Some of the latest things he wrote about Galadriel, and it's clear that he still struggled with like exactly did she take part in the rebellion, or did she just happened to kind of like leave at the same time? What was going on there? So it feels like something of an unsettled matter.
Mm.
Her attitude towards Fëanor.
Yeah,
So
I agree. Scott says he was unfriended before Facebook was a thing. That's all right. That's how you unfriended people. You just refuse them locks of your hair.
that's right.
No, I don't think I will. No, thank you.
All right, I'm gonna read another note here from Amy.
Do it.
One of our patrons, Amy. Hi, John and Greta. I hope you are doing well. I just finished Tolkien's Requiem and have started the Silmarillion. I am so glad that I got Tolkien's Requiem. It is a great introduction to the Silmarillion. Thanks, John. You're welcome. Tolkien's Requiem. Boom. I am still on the Waldman letter, but I've already thought of a couple of questions. The more I learn about Middle-earth, the more I want to know. My questions are about Valinor and characters from Lord of the Rings. First, did Aragorn and Arwen go to Valinor when they passed away? So, no. Aragorn dies in Middle-earth, right, as a man. And then Arwen, I believe she eventually dies from grief after that, right? So we did that episode several years ago where we talked about that particular passage, but I believe that in fact I thought it was in Appendix A, but I believe the story is that Aragorn dies as he's expected to as a man, after a long period, much longer life than your average man, of course, being a descendant of the kings of Numenor. And Arwen eventually either just dies from grief or sort of fades away. But she does not make the final journey. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's right. But when it's been a few years, I always question myself on these sorts of things. Amy goes on to ask if they did not go to Valinor, why not? Well, Aragorn wouldn't have been allowed, right?
He's a man,
right? Is a man. And Arwen chose against it, right? She chose against it when she decided to marry Aragorn. So, yes. Second, I read in Appendix A that Galadriel may have obtained the grace for Gimli to go to Valinor with Legolas. But more cannot be said of this matter. Did Tolkien ever write any more on this subject, and did any dwarves besides Gimli go to Valinor? I don't think he ever wrote more on that. And if anybody can provide any references otherwise, I'd love to find them. But I do not know of them. And I don't think there was any. I've never heard of any other dwarves being allowed to go to Valinor. So
that ties nicely back with what Ty said, that with that relationship between Galadriel and Gimli, her giving Gimli a lock of her hair upon him asking was really very special, because she denied her own, right? Like Fëanor would have been one of her own kin, right?
Mhm.
She denied him that request, yet she gave it to a dwarf. That act was honestly larger than many realize. Imagine being a guest of the Queen in England and she kisses your hand. So, I mean, that clearly it's pretty awesome, that relationship. And then, so it's really no surprise that she would have obtained that grace for Gimli,
right,
to go to Valinor.
right.
Yeah. Let's see. Yes, Timothy Morrell says, I think that is why she wanted to die immortal, so that she would not come back without him. Her love was that deep. Yes. Yeah. Well put, for sure. Talking about the where he says, I'm very leery on the rules about who gets in and who doesn't, but I do remember an explicit statement that Gimli was the only dwarf ever to cross the sea to the west.
Yeah.
And then Iruana says, question, did Idril and Tuar journey to Valinor? Does that mean Tuar is currently still alive on Valinor after all these years?
I can't.
Since Idril and Tuor.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to. We'll have to talk about that when we get to the later chapters of the Silmarillion. It's another one of those where it's just been a long time since I've really thought in depth about that. And
Well, there's no death in Valinor, is there? Isn't it like a eternal paradise?
not unless someone kills you,
Oh,
or you can die in Feanor's mother, right? She did. Well, did she die? She like went to the halls of she basically like just gave up the ghost. Is that dying? I don't know. Is that the same thing for elves? But yeah, she just had her life spirit basically like taken from her by Feanor.
By Feanor.
Yeah.
Red Hawk says Arwen gave Frodo her spot to Valinor.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Is that it? Okay.
That's cool. If that's the case, I think that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah, that's a really beautiful. Middle Earth is full of all kinds of beautiful love stories. It's pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. Timothy says Feanor asked 3 times and was refused, and it is important to note that Galadriel gave Gimli 3 strands of her hair. So that's interesting. The coincidence,
just like
not a coincidence.
3 Silmarils. Yeah.
The 3 Silmarils, and also Feanor asked for 3 times, was denied 3 times, and Gimli got 3 strands of hair. I think that's really very cool. Let's see. Werty says, I've heard that too, Red Hawk. But how was Bilbo and Sam allowed to go? Was Arwen's spot worth 3 because they were small folk? I'm just uncertain about all of it. I don't know. Do you know anything?
Mm-mm.
No. We're gonna have to do a deep dive into Valinor and the rules and regulations of entrance.
I got so many deep dives. I got to do. Yeah, I'm gonna need to be an elf to get it all done.
So, well, you better shave your beard because you're already you live most of your life.
I'm already in the 3rd cycle of life, apparently.
Oh no. Here's another great quote from John Rickards. He says, "But in after days it was sung that Tuor alone of mortal men was numbered among the elder race, and was joined with the Noldor, whom he loved, and his fate is sundered from the fate of men."
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what we were talking about. The Tuor went to Valinor. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. His fate is sundered. So that means he was no longer a man, right? That's what it means to be sundered, to be separated from.
Speaking of Valinor, let me read this good note from Tom. This is the one I was kicking myself for not remembering I had from Tom here.
And he's already gone to bed.
I know.
Unbelievable. Hopefully he'll listen tomorrow. Let's see.
Where is it here? There we go. Tom says, another enjoyable episode. I had not thought much about the summons. The summons referring to the summons to Valinor, right? The elves, the summons by the Valar of the elves to Valinor. I think in my younger days, I was on the side of going to Valinor, but now I feel almost reluctance. Although not a punishment, Greta pointed out that there were consequences. One might say that many of the best and brightest elves left Middle-earth. Yet one of the 3 emissaries did remain. Maya marries Elf. Thus Elwë becomes Thingol, Middle-earth enriched. Much was accomplished through Melian and Thingol, while the Noldor did learn and do great works in Aman. Perhaps, though, the Valar would have traveled to Middle-earth to teach the elves, had they not been summoned. But all works out for good. Thankfully, I am not tasked with such decisions and responsibilities. Maybe the Valar were grown in wisdom also, as they exercised the oversight of the world.
It's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
We kind of assume that they're perfect, right? And that they're already mature in wisdom and all the virtues because they're Valar, right? But maybe that's not the case. Maybe they still had some growing to do as well.
Absolutely, they did.
Yeah,
absolutely, they did. There's no being, right, that's created in that's created by Ilúvatar that is perfect in a final sense, right?
True.
Yeah, I think that's I think that's very much like a strong like theological anthropological point of like that Tolkien would have rung well with Tolkien is that every one of us has growing and perfecting to do as part of this life, and I think that applies to the Valar as well, right there.
Yeah, I know that makes absolute perfect sense. I mean, maybe they're further along that path or that journey, than a
Mhm.
lot of other lesser created beings. But yeah, still, like you said, not created perfect. But yet we kind of set them up on this pedestal, right? Because
Mhm.
they all are, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of circling back to Frodo, to the Valinor question about Frodo and Sam and Bilbo. Scott says Frodo, Sam, and Bilbo would have died in Valinor as well, correct? Tolkien talks somewhere about it being a place of purgation before their eventual deaths, since they are mortal.
Yeah, that's my
Yeah.
understanding too, and I don't have the reference in front of me,
Mhm.
but that's what I've always heard in reference to that question. Is it's like it's a place of like restfulness and
Mhm. Yeah.
and healing, but it's not. The other thing I've heard is that they are in Tol Eressëa. They're not actually in like Valinor beyond the
Okay.
what is it, the Pelori? Yes, beyond the Pelori.
Yeah. Yeah, word he describes it as a holy hospice. I
Mhm.
think that's a really good description. He says, "Indeed, being in the land does not grant immortality, but gives a peaceful, comfortable place to dwell while their time runs out." Yeah, holy
Oh yeah.
hospice. I think that's great.
By the way, do you remember? Excuse me. Do you remember? I think in either chapter 6 or chapter 5, it kind of had this offhanded reference to this figure Rumil, who created the first characters that they wrote. That they wrote in, right? So it was. I think it was chapter 6. It mentions at the very beginning of the chapter.
Say the first part again. I was distracted.
No, you're
Sorry.
good. So at the beginning of chapter 6 of the Silmarillion, it mentions. Um, I'm just going to read it. Then it was that the Noldor first bethought them of letters, and Rumil of Tirion was the name
Mm,
of the lore master who first achieved fitting signs for the recording of speech and song, some for graving upon metal or in stone, others for drawing with brush or with pen. Okay, so it's just like this little thing that's written in there. And what was cool is I've been rereading Book of Lost Tales, and Rumil is like, so Book of Lost Tales, right, is the original Silmarillion. It's the Silmarillion Tolkien wrote back in. He like dictated to Edith, and she wrote it down for him, right?
mm,
Back in the late 1919, the late 19 teens, into the early 1920s. But Rumil is the one who, Ariel, who's the traveler from overseas, who comes to Tol Eressëa, and then he starts learning about all the lore, right? And Rumil is like the one who explains the music of the Ainur to Ariel, right? To this man Ariel. So it was kind of cool. I was like, okay, I guess that's why they included this guy Rumil in there. Is it's like a little hat nod to to this character that played a much larger part in the Silmarillion originally, right? In the Book of Lost Tales, the original Silmarillion. So
cool. Very cool. Let's see. Yeah, Urana, I'm right there with you. Says with all these amazing experts in the live stream in the chat room, I feel like an elfling learning from all this. LOL, this is great. Yes, I agree.
Council of Elrond right here, like I
Yes,
said.
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like letter 328. Scott quotes, "Alas, there are some wounds." Wait, is that from letter 328? I don't know. I guess we're still talking about Valinor and those who get to go and what it's like. But here's the quote. "Alas, there are some wounds that cannot be wholly cured," said Gandalf. "Not in Middle-earth. Frodo was sent or allowed to pass over sea to heal him, if
Mm-hmm.
that could be done before he died." Okay. So that's why Frodo was sent. And yes, I think also Sam. No, Sam didn't go. Did he? No, Bilbo.
So
Bilbo did.
Sam went to Valinor
Oh,
eventually. Yeah.
eventually. Okay.
So Bilbo and Frodo go, and then
Because they were
Sam
all.
goes back, right? In the book, the actual Lord of the
Yes.
Rings ends with "Well, I'm
Okay.
back," right?
Yes.
From Sam, and then it talks about in the appendices that Sam becomes mayor,
Right. That's why I was confused.
and he was
Okay.
mayor like 7 times, I think. And then eventually, I think after his wife dies, he departs.
He goes to
He
Valinor.
goes to the Grey Havens and gets to go to the Blessed Realm. Now, again, like I think this is correct. Somebody check me on this, but I don't think the hobbits themselves go to Valinor. I think they go to Tol Eressëa.
That's what we were
Right.
talking about. Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Well,
Sorry.
you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't making. So
well, Valinor is sometimes just like
it's kind of a
generally
catch-all.
used for catch-all for the Blessed Realm, right?
Yeah, but you're saying Tol Eressëa, because I remember we talked about this in the podcast, because Tol Eressëa is part of the Blessed Realm. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think you could say that. Yeah.
And then Valinor is another part of the Blessed Realm. It's just kind of like all under this umbrella of
Valinor is where the
places.
Valar themselves live, right?
Yes,
within the Blessed Realm.
And that's not where.
And that's like where the two trees would have been, right?
Yeah.
But it's not the whole region.
Yes. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay. Scott says he would eventually have to pass away. No mortal could or can abide forever on earth or within time. So he went both to a purgatory and to a reward for a while. Yeah. Speaking of Bilbo and Frodo, a place of reflection and peace and a gaining of a truer understanding of his position in littleness and in greatness. Oh, that's awesome. Timothy asks, would Valinor be the same as the green fields described by Tolkien? Also, I always took it as a sort of Eden due to his Catholic beliefs. By the way, I just recently found your channel and I love it. Thanks. Awesome. Welcome, Timothy. Glad you found us.
Yeah, for sure.
Green fields, is that the same thing?
I'd have to see the larger reference on that. What the green fields?
Yeah.
The green fields described by Tolkien. Yeah, I'm not sure what that's in reference to.
And Ty does clarify. It says yes, all the Hobbit bearers. So basically, all the hobbits that bore the ring, right? It says yes, it doesn't mention Valinor directly, but the Blessed Realm and/or the West. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Getting a little too free with my geographical terms.
All right, you guys. Well, I think we are. I think we're gonna wrap up here soon. So any final thoughts? I mean, I hope before the next live stream, we got some interesting news on the Rings of Power front to talk about, but we had a great conversation without much news on that front either. I seriously, guys, I'm kind of, I'm kind of over it. Like with the Rings of Power, I really hope it, at least over just kind of like churning on the same stuff we already saw. I really hope we get more concrete info to deal with and can really nerd out on what does the legendarium actually say about this kind of stuff in the future, because right now we're all just we've got 30 seconds and some articles to go on, and it's a lot of speculation, so and I really want to use the Rings of Power as a springboard to really get into all of the lore, right? It's like to really educate ourselves and really get smarter on all of that. But at the end of the day, there's just so much that Tolkien wrote, so much to discuss. It's just fun to be here doing this with you guys, going through all of this and having, honestly, having you stump us, having you distract us with Star Wars and Harry Potter stuff. Because I love both Star Wars and Harry Potter. You love Harry Potter.
I love Harry Potter.
Yeah. So this has been a lot of fun.
It has been. And thank you, Timothy.
Yeah, Timothy,
that is
thank
awesome.
you.
What is that called again?
Super chat.
Super chat. Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, this was
thanks, Ty.
Oh yes, thank you, Ty. You guys are awesome.
You guys rock.
Yes. I love what we were talking about at the end there about, doing our little mini deep dive on the Blessed Realm. And I think what Scott says here is really good. He says, I think Tolkien was influenced here by the Garden of Eden, a part of the created world, and Dante's depiction of the Garden of Eden as the pinnacle of purgatory, a place of preparation for the heavenly city. Yep. And then John Rickards pulling out the awesome quotes. He says, after Morgoth was thrown down, and when they came into the west, the elves of Beleriand dwelt upon Tol Eressëa, the lonely isle that looks both west and east. Yes, I remember reading that recently.
Yeah.
So, it does not mention Valinor directly, but the Blessed Realm and/or the West. So, yeah,
good
deal. What does he say? I'm trying not to pay attention. Would hate to get super hyped and be disappointed. Oh, he's talking about the
The
show.
Rings of Power. Yeah.
Would rather either be pleasantly surprised or uninvested in my disappointment. I'm a scepter. Doesn't mean he means skeptic in general though. Yeah, I'm right there with you, Wordy. I'm trying really hard not to be too invested.
I think that's where we all are right now. Most of the feedback that I've gotten on videos that I've done on the Rings of Power so far have been, it's been mostly people who are like, it's going to be a disaster.
Yeah.
And, some of it's more like people with their hair on fire. Some of it's like, you really good, like a lot of it's really good points though, like really interesting stuff. So anyway, we'll see you all.
We will see. We're in it together, guys, you know? I think we're all on the same page. So we'll be able to either cry on each other's shoulders or rejoice, pick apart, what have you. We'll get to do it all together. So that'll be awesome.
Ariana, thank you for joining. Glad you were with us.
Yes, that's awesome.
Thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. Let's go ahead and close with a shout out to our amazing patrons, especially the following: John R, Caitlin of Tea with Tolkien, Jacob L, Jacob Lockham, Ms. Anonymous, Andrew T, Red Hawk, Shannon S, Brian O, Emilio P, Zeke F, James A, James L, Chris L, Chuck F, Aja V, Ish of the Hammer, Teresa C, David of Pints with Jack, Jonathan D, Eric S, Eric B, Johanna T, Mike M, Robert H, Paul D, Julia Werty, Matthew W, Joe Bagelman, Chris K, Jacob S, and Don J.
Thank you guys.
As well as those celebrating their Patreon anniversary this month, March of 2022, Caitlin of Tea with Tolkien, Paul D, Daria, Stephen S, Jay-Z, Andrew T, Bethany E, and Daniel Delaney. And looking forward to next month's live stream already, you guys.
Oh,
this has been a lot of fun.
Super, super fun. Thank you guys for joining. It really is. It's great fun.
Absolutely.
So we will talk at you guys next time.
That we shall.
Good night, y'all.
Bye-bye, everybody.